journaling family. This is Marissa-Moses, and this is Pages in Process. Welcome everyone to today's Pages in Process. And today we're going to connect and do a little bit of time together journaling. So this is, what is this? What is this? This is something, okay, so here's the thing. I've been considering, how do I show up with Pages in Process? And since Pages in Process is about processing and my pages and processing my pages, I think maybe what I'm considering right now as I start to share more consistently online, but in like a more pre-recorded, a little bit of time in the editing process kind of phase, it feels like the way in which I like doing. I think it's really fun. It's feeling like what, okay, what it's like what I'm trying to do is help myself feel more calm, comfortable, connected, sharing the things that come out of my journals. Yes, because not because it's like, here, read my journals and my innermost secrets, but because my journals tend to be like, I'm processing through emotions that lots of people process through, and I'm figuring out how to do that. And I think that they can be helpful to both share for you, but also for me to be able to say, hey, I'm going through this. Anyone else relate? And then I get a sense of those of you who are in community with me that I feel really a sense of co-regulation and support with. I think what I'm doing with Pages in Process also ultimately is discovering, like, who is my community and who is it that I am speaking to? Who is it that I'm talking to, and how and why? Because I've had a lot of friends that I've shown up different ways for different people based on the people's needs that I'm in connection with. And while I don't want to judge that as like not okay, I do recognize that that hasn't always been just because I want to. It's also been in part because I know or recognize that certain aspects of who I am won't be welcomed, either who I am or how I experience the world isn't something that can be met in a way that I trust on the other end. Yeah. So therefore, I have a history of, I guess, having a boundary there. Maybe it's not so much that I'm shape-shifting, and maybe I am, but maybe it's also if I reframe it, right? So I think a lot of what I like about Pages in Process and allowing myself to show up here is that I get to see how it's like when I watch back my videos, because I do, I get to kind of like, because I feel really clear often. They say you can't see the forest for the trees, right? Sometimes when we're inside of our own psyches, it's hard to be like, I can see myself and what's going on, and I know exactly what to do next. Sometimes that happens, and some people are really gifted at that, and oh my gosh, how lovely. But for a lot of us, it can feel like you can't see what's going on because you're inside of it. Like you can't see the overall awareness because of the thing that you're in and like how it works, where the forest begins and ends, because you're inside of the forest and there's trees covering you and you have no concept of if there's a meadow over there or a pond over there. And you are kind of wandering through the terrain, and there's some from inside of oneself, if we were to use this forest metaphor for our psyches. You have the, that's loud. I don't know if you can hear that outside, loud car. That car just sped by and was like one of those racing cars and set off a bunch of car alarms outside. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like the vibration of it rocked through the neighborhood. So And it's almost like I'm so sensitive to outside stimuli that now it's like, even though I recognize I was in the middle of a story that just happening has me like, oh, like feeling so sensitive to the impact of what that meant, that I like have to be with myself for a minute and just like re-regulate and be like, it's okay. It's okay, Marissa, you're okay. You're in your apartment. Um, things are safe. But I also recognize that as I'm speaking with you to you, that part of what it is I'm saying and how I'm saying maybe doesn't feel as boundaried as I want it to. Yet at the same time, I do want to utilize this space as a way to kind of have a yogic experience, like a stretching and the yoking experience of um, feeling like I can show up as my authentic self a little bit more broadly or more truthfully in the world. And my pages and process so far, as I've been sharing them, has really helped with that. And being seen by others who reflect back to me how my shares have helped them feel less alone or have had a resonant match for where they're at in their lives. So I want to recognize and like register the truth of that too. And it's like, so here's the thing though, right? So if I'm just doing this for myself and the kind of build community and it feels really good and just do my little edit thing and then I put it on YouTube and that's great and like, cool. And there's the question of that I have for myself because, you know, during this pandemic, it's been a long dark night of the soul for so many of us, myself included. And one of the things I've discovered is I can't go back to working the way I was before because of the impact on my mental health that it has had for years and years and years. And having the time without work during this pandemic experience has gifted me the opportunity of recognizing that like, oh my gosh, I've been living in a trauma response, and coming home and just like not being able to do anything. I don't want to go back into a situation when the support I have right now during the pandemic goes away. And so I know I have at least a couple more months of being able to feel like I can continue finding my way and have support through how things are working right now. But after that, like I need to be able to find a way that feels lucrative to move forward. So last pages in process, I talked about the calling I have to to birth a project called Marissa's Moon Magic. And so I've started that in bigger steps, and it's been wanting to come out for a very long time. And already the feedback has been so gorgeous and beautiful and wonderful. And it feels like that could be a place where I get some financial flow in a way that feels good and comfortable and right to me. And so I'm excited about that because I feel really regulated. I feel really clear about the information that I am sharing. I feel really like knowledgeable in the tools that I'm working with astrology and moon magic, and incorporating my understandings of self-care and being trauma informed and how the nervous system works, and understanding what it means to connect somatically to our body to heal that sort of pre-verbal trauma space. So that feels so good. And here I am with you, kind of still finding my way as far as like, what is pages in process? Why am I doing pages in process? Is it just sort of like self-exploration? Will I be, and have I been, and will I continue to grow a little bit more of a like a feeling like I'm of service as opposed to just kind of figuring my own stuff out. And what will that look like? What does that look like? And if that does continue to happen, will there be parts of my pages and process and the way I've been approaching it here with you that then becomes a little more recessed? Like, do I continue reading my pages to you and talking about the where I'm at and why and what's going on, or does that become something part of like a Patreon only experience? And and I'm figuring out my relationship right now with the Patreon I have, and I have one lovely patron, and it's a dear friend of mine who I met during the pandemic actually, and I feel really safely supported um, by by just their energy and their desire to support my work and just kind of be there. Um, Yet I also recognize and understand that there is still some sort of like sussing out internally for myself of like what am I contributing? It's like I have this question. It's like, well, what am I contributing? Am I contributing anything? Does this work that I'm sharing and the way that I'm sharing it, is it meaningful for other people? Like, is there something digestible in like a clear format that I should be also putting out there? Um, like workbooks and worksheets and things like that. And then I feel like like overwhelmed, and that part of me that like can't go back to how things were before the pandemic starts to like short circuit, and I feel like I'm back inside of like a teaching module in a education format that like isn't suited to my very like free flowing, really like clear experience of how I like to be, which is interesting. More process, we're processing today, which is interesting because this seems to be, in a sense, kind of also a trigger for me in a way, and I'd like it to not be. So we're figuring that out. So this is like interrelational work that we're doing, me, and also me and you, to figure out like, okay, there's something is going on and it's setting off my nervous system that's like fire, mayday, like something's wrong, something's off. And I also feel really good about a lot of the relationship I have both with my journaling process and practice, and also with those of you who are enjoying this kind of deep dive sharing that I do here. But that the deep dive sharing that I do here is also can be scary, taxing on the nervous system, and unclear at times, because back to the story before that car zoomed by. So now I had to go through all of that just to get back to that story. Isn't that interesting? So that's how triggering that experience was for me during this way of connecting with you guys. So I had to process through all of that in order to get back to where I was before. And I think that that's a healthy and helpful way for my awareness, and maybe yours too, if you relate to this, if you're a very sensitive person. I think most people who are interested in listening to my long-winded pages and process are probably very sensitive, deep feeling people that like sometimes like you just need so much to recover from something that your nervous system registers as a threat, because you have so much history of adverse childhood experiences or adverse workplace experiences or adverse community experiences, but showing up in these situations and these experiences that have dysregulated you. And when that becomes chronic, you just don't know how to move forward sometimes in a way that feels like you can be yourself and that you feel at home enough in who you are that you're not reaching in a desperate way outside of you for something that's like out of reach or not quite where you're at, or like just trying to trying to escape. And I would like to live my life in a way where I don't feel like I'm trying to escape from anything. And while it's great to have this Marissa's Moon Magic that feels like I have like a kind of like a clear yes, I still feel so drawn to the performing arts and to my performing arts friends and community. And with my project, Self-Care for Performers, that all of these other projects, Pages and Process and Marissa's Moon Magic, has come out of in order to get me to a place where I feel like self-regulated enough to show up there in a consistent way where I feel like it's not draining, but is restorative for me or just easeful for me to engage with that kind of work, holding space for self-care for performing artists. I have, it's like it's like Pages and Process maybe is a bridge for me, maybe, between these two projects, right? Where, so I have my history of like my performing arts lineage of and all the teachers I've studied with there, which some have been so wonderful. And I'm not saying that, but also there's been a lot of like traumatic and like mentally, psychologically skewed experiences that I've internalized and have become abusive in my relationship to myself and where I'm at in the world. I am so aware of that. And I do feel really called to want to be able to heal my relationship to the performing arts because I do still deeply love them. And I feel very committed to that being something that I hold space for being able to happen. Yet, I feel so like my needs are so, they go so far unmet there in that space because I still have so much healing to do. So if I'm helping others heal, but I'm not healed yet, then I feel totally drained, like trying to, help others heal the part of themselves that in me needs the healing. And yes, it's helping them and I see it helping and I get feedback at different times. But also I think what I'm seeing is in large part, I need other things to help me not feel resentful or depleted or frustrated or angsty or like I wish I had this and it's not fair that I'm giving this kind of awareness and space to others when I've had to work so hard to get it myself. There's that kind of like withholding thing that comes up and I don't like that and I don't want that and I'm getting tired now just talking about it. So now we know we've tapped into something that Marissa can go sleep off and process. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Thank you for staying with me through that. So that's self-care for performers over there. Then we have Marissa's Moon Magic. And I love magic and I love the moon. And I've always had a really like loving relationship to the moon. I used to like write and channel messages from the stars and the moon outside and write like love notes to them. And I read them now and I'm still like, this stuff is really good. And I wrote it in like middle school and high school because I was just tuning into my sense of how words connected to the like etheric nature of things. So that's my relationship to the moon. Also, the magic and astrology in general, so like the night sky, and other people who relate to this kind of work seem to be, I'm reminded of like I have so many lovely teachers, guides, and women who are like aunties to me that have come in and out of my life really throughout my whole life that have had, and I'm gonna cry because I love them so much, but they've had such like a nurturing and nourishing space in my life. And so it's like, I love that so much. And I feel how different that is than what I've experienced in the performing arts. And it makes me really sad because I also recognize probably, because magic and magical tools are not really dominant culture. So, I
it's not that nobody has this unless you have magic and magical tools. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that, because I don't know, I'm not everybody. What I'm saying that is I've needed those tools and those kinds of relationships in order to feel safe. Wow. So here we are. So I think that that's like in large part why I feel comfortable and good sharing from that space, is because I have so like a well of so much history to draw upon that has so much love and so much nourishment. I don't know why I'm crying. It's almost like there's grief there, and I don't know if the grief, well, okay, so the grief I think is in large part because I felt like I've had to either hide or be really selective or like not really understood by people more broadly in my communities around that aspect of me, where I feel really safe. And so I'd like more of that part of me to be able to be present, for self-care for performers, because it means, Jesus, wow. um, we're gonna stop there because I'm just gonna lose it. So that's why that, and I feel like pages in process, where I'm here right now with you, because that's why we're here. I'll go be with that beautiful side of stuff that apparently I have a lot of emotions around later. Or not, or now, because apparently it's like just present. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna take a deep breath in. You can join me if you want to, if it's bringing up anything for you, or if you just want to be with me while I move through this. And take a deep breath in. I'm gonna put a hand on my heart. I'm gonna exhale. And again, a deep breath in. And I'm just gonna release that. It's not to release, like to let go of anything that's happened or any aspects of who I am or my emotions or calling them wrong or bad. They can totally be here, and they can be here with me, and I can hold them, and I can feel the weight of my body on my spine, and I can rest back and down into myself. And I can start to feel safe again, because a lot of what I've been talking about and how I've been sharing has brought up a lot of stuff, has unearthed a lot of shadow. Shadow not necessarily being something bad, but being something that you can't see clearly because there's no light on it. So just like from when we were in the forest, here we are again, back at the forest. So the metaphor of that. This story has a lot of like long corridors and dead ends that we keep coming back to find the way forward through. So coming back into the story about the forest that we were talking about, being inside of the forest, not being able to see the forest for the trees. Sometimes when you're there, like I just did now, we don't always have, well, two things. If you're a bird, you can fly above and you can look and you can see the lay of the land, just like I attempted to do a little bit of talking about the different projects of self-care for performers, the Marissa's Moon Magic, and then in the middle, pages in process. This is a device, by the way, to help with mapping storytelling that I've learned in Shakespeare classes. You give the things you're talking about an orientation in space. So when you reference them, people who are watching you, they have a visual connection also to the things you're talking about, but it also can help you, the performer, the experiencer, the communicator, or the processor of your own psyche and pages, to have a sense of orientation around and a map of what's going on inside of your forest. So maybe if all of it is inside of your forest and you've been looking around, right? Maybe you, whether if you're not the bird, if you don't have
wings to fly up above and you feel very entrenched inside of the woods, then you can walk and explore and investigate and connect with different aspects of what's inside of the forest and explore and create a map that way. So what we just did, all these little corridors we went down where I was like, I don't know, whether I'm here, I'm exploring it and this is happening, and here I'm exploring it and this is happening. And now I have, even within those experiences, a little bit more lay of the land. I can recognize a little bit more clearly what makes up the forest that I'm inside of. I can understand a little bit more clearly how I can be in relationship with aspects of this place I happen to be inside of that I could recognize as home, if I learn how to be co-relational with what's present in a way that I can sustain some sort of enough nourishment and enough of my basic needs to be met that that I can continue to live there, right? And to be resilient within this experience and know that certain places I might thrive and other places there's a lot of healing to do. And in this experience I'm at with you, I can build my experience of resiliency so that I can move between the two depending on where my capacities feel like they are. So I actually started recording knitting today because I was going to record like a let's write together session for my Patreon, but that doesn't feel right. So this one's going to be, I think, one I share more publicly on the YouTubes. I'm going to read you something that I wrote either yesterday or the day before or the day before that, something like that. Let's do the last. Let's do this. Let's do the last 3 days or so. Let's do the last 4 days. This feels right. No, yes, no. We'll start with just say yes to the hard thing, Marissa. We're going to say yes to the hard thing, which is go 4 days instead of 3. My brain is like, but did I read this one already online? I'm like, no, I think it's been longer than 4 days. And if not, then you get to hear me read another piece of one of my pages from a day that maybe I've already read. And now, do you see, I'm like shutting down. I'm like, maybe I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm not doing something right. Maybe like imposter syndrome galore and like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I get nervous and then like I'm having social anxiety with you. So I'm just talking through what's going on inside of my physical experience from a place of awareness, knowing that like I do totally accept myself here, and it helps me to accept myself here because if you name it, you can claim it. That's a saying that they say in a lot of magical circles. If you name it, you can claim it. So that's what's happened. I'm gonna claim that. We're gonna move forward. Here we go. July 27th, 2021. I am present to myself and my own needs. The core of my heart leads forward with a blanket of hope and safety. My head hurts a bit right now. For what it's worth, there is a way forward that means something more playful and engaged than my frozen inner space has had depth of access to before or in a long time. The rise and fall of my recovery fills the muses of my life with heart. The love life of a widowed inner bride, never chosen for marriage, yet wed all the same to her unlived dreams. Oh my God, that one. I like cry. Fuck. The wash of solitude speaks mighty fine, and I love the way I'm sharing from a distance. So I've been allowing to read these outside of my like live Instagrams and just even bring them to YouTube, which is still like anyone could see them. But at least for right now, who knows how things will continue, but at least for right now, like 7 of you to, I don't know, 7 to like 70 of you, depending on the video, we'll see them. Not, and I don't know what that's going to be. I guess it's still a fair amount of people as opposed to, I don't know, like 40 to 140 people on the Instagram lives. Plus, like recording it live makes me nervy. I guess I feel that same way here though, right now with you while I'm doing this, because I'm trying to like bring the same awareness I had during the lives here, but in a pre-recorded way so that I feel a little more safe for health. Okay, this is what's going on is I was recessing because I needed that for safety, but I like to work with the phases of the moon. So it was like a, less full moon, more in my shadow, more like intentionally like recessing things to the shadow for safety and for comfort, to be less visible. But now it's like I'm recognizing that if I continue to build my experience of sharing on YouTube, that this is going to be just as vulnerable as sharing live on Instagram. And I think I'm having that awareness right now and questioning, and just questioning what that means, if that's okay with me, how I'm going to continue moving forward, sort of like I was talking about at the beginning of this pages and process when I was processing where I was at today. Okay. So the wash of solitude speaks mighty fine, and I love the way I'm sharing from a distance. I feel safer over here, more exposed, yet with a wider option for boundaried engagement. So something about moving to YouTube feels more boundaried than having so much on Instagram somehow. At least for me right now. I trust the fruit and stream of my fertile body as the earth. She can hold me. I want to feel the presence of a possible solution. I want to work to minimize harmful action. I also want to live life with joy, belonging, and an adventurer spirit. My heart hopes for a stable ground, and I become less concerned about who I might lose if I'm honest about myself. I want to be concerned with healing, growth, and sustainably nourished living. The right way forward for me is to release what feels like too much and not enough, to find comfort and composure in the simple invitation of a curious and inclusive community. The way of my heart rests safely upon the harsh pain of my stomach, and my solar plexus screams for the pain to stop. I am looking for a life I don't feel the need to run away from. Pastimes and projects that have a fiscal return, as well as emotional and spiritual one. I want to be able to trust myself and not play back all the stories of times when things fell apart after long and intentional investment periods. God, it's just so painful when that happens over and over and over and over and over again. I just feel exhausted by that. I am learning how to allow projects to flow out of me while not giving the power of my purpose and message away to others. It feels important to me for right now to learn how to like not be, it's not to not be in connection with others, but to like not have a partner in the work that I'm doing, that I'm sharing, or multiple community members trying to do this one thing together, which is where a lot of my work has been before, in the performing arts specifically. And I think that the complexity of that too in healing community is what I'm hoping to and wanting to and longing to do here, and here in Pages and Process, over Immersive Moon Magic, and eventually and also incrementally. So, and it has been happening in self-care for performers. It's just also very dense there, in addition to all the wonderful things that happen and are happening with that project and that perspective. There's just also so much more. Okay, so I am learning how to allow projects to flow out of me while not giving the power of my purpose and message away to others. I just said that. Yeah. I also recognize the need to be safe in my communication methods, and I am finding it useful to create different containers for my ways of speaking and connecting with others. Versus my magic, self-care for performers, pages in process. Plus, I have my like creative work outlets that those are sort of like tabled for right now. It's not that I won't ever use them, utilize them. It's just they feel like if and when this happens, if that happens naturally, awesome. But like they're not my focus right now because I need this other stuff for the healing that I want to do presently. Okay, yet I also recognize the need to be safe in my communication methods of finding it useful to create different containers for my ways of speaking and connecting with others. The life of a wholehearted Marissa is something I am finding out. What is that? The purpose home. What do I mean by the purpose home? The purpose is home. Home is the purpose. The purpose cultivates a sense of home. I want to feel at home. Home in my life, home in my creative projects, and home in my body. I have had so much pain in these things, and as so many of us have, and it can become something scary to face our current experience with new methods of engagement when old memories overcloud. Lots can change. There is a way into our own hearts that matters most. A lot of how I have been writing feels less abstract and more clear as I continue. I wonder if my words are less obtuse than I thought, or if I am reading and feeling my words with more skills for finding, sensing, assorting clarity. Likely both. Always yes and. In love, Marissa. July 28th, 2021. I am the depth of the ocean, the rise of the wind, the soft, supple nature of meadow flowers. I have a wealth of knowledge, and I am in the process of divvying up what I create and how I share in digestible ways. To care for the core of oneself is to give so much meaning to the heart of darkness. The dark must be recessed from the day's glow, accessible and available, yet with space between the bustle of daylight and soft, solemn night. I have a clearer and clearer understanding of how to do this. I feel the flow of so much that registers a ride home and foray into the future of things. I was writing a way forward with all of my complexities in a great big mixing bowl. And now I ride the gentle, soft home of my heart with a fullness of spirit. To say softly, what wants to come through will be given space and care is my only daily commitment. I have a devotion of creative emergence. This is my craft. This is my home. A recognition of what's been done before and done again and shared in ways that speak forward something about collective grief. The rite of passage comes to our threshold as we ready ourselves and often when unaware. There is a way of making and releasing meaning that we all have the ability to consciously choose and practice. Humans are meaning making animals. There are also clear things to undergo in side glances and whispers that make for wounding and hard recovery, sometimes even beyond reach for now or maybe for good. So I think that's talking about sometimes we can make and release different meanings in order of things in order to find new relationship to our perspective in a way that can help us find resiliency to move forward from a place that doesn't feel so heavy. Although not to discredit the need and necessity and the beauty of being with the heaviness and going into grief, sometimes also there are clear things that are actually happening around that are wounding, and that from that place it's not great to submit to the weight of what can come with the grief if there's also like active if you're still under active attack in some way, whether that's your own perception or your experience of what's really happening in your life around you, or a combination of the two, but how you're dealing with that, it doesn't do good to go into, well, I have many years gone into that place of just accepting defeat, accepting the wounds, accepting the pain, accepting all of that stuff, and just finding a way to be with the experience of the very real stuff that's coming forward and at you too. I want to say, if you were in a place like that, oh my gosh, my heart for you. And I just want to breathe to the reality that that is something that so many of us feel and experience deeply. And when you're in it, it can feel and and be something that you can't see anything except the pain. You can't see anything or feel anything except the weight. Like there's no, like even the option of hope can feel too out of reach. And so if that's you, oh my gosh, just like, know I've been there. Know you're not alone. Know that there are really beautiful ways and perspectives and practice that if and when you feel ready to connect with them, are there for you in communities of healers. And for me, the more of that I felt, the more I've had to invite a passive role in my own healing. So going to energy workers, or going to receive body work, or somewhere where I'm just receiving. I'm only receiving, and it's not. I didn't even have the ability, some of that span of time, to go see a therapist or talk, because, or write, because a lot of, when we're dealing with trauma, a lot of our bodies can store like traumatic memories inside of our bodies that's pre-verbal. And so when we're in that like deep frozen state, or like experience, there's oftentimes no words and no action that the body recognizes and registers it's safe. So working with someone who's trauma-based, somatically informed, and that you feel energetically safe in the company of, can be so helpful, where you don't feel like you have to do anything, be anything, or participate in a way that is contingent upon whether or not you feel safe. That the safety held and the safe experience that's going on for that space can be from a place of learning that it's safe to receive, learning that it's safe to be in connection. Yeah, we'll stop there. We'll pause there. As far as that investigation of that, so that I can say from outside of that experience, because I was sort of going into it and feeling it a bit with y'all, that if you are in a place where a part of you can do this for yourself and hold that part of you, go for it. Or if you're someone who would like to be able to hold that space for someone else and feel like you have your own boundaries intact, you can imagine the other person or that aspect of yourself just like being held and feeling into the heart and testing distance. Maybe you need the closeness, and that's reassuring. And maybe that's the point for a little bit, is to have some sort of reassurance in the closeness and the connection. I have to recognize that certain frames of perspective contribute to the well-being of myself and others, while some directly counter and abuse with or without awareness of harm done. You. Am I speaking? Oh, you. And then I question, am I speaking to another aspect of myself? Let me just kind of do that to someone else, the overarching you. And if so, is it spirit, human, plant, animal, earth, space, environment? Who do I reference when I speak of you? And so I listen and wait for a response. And then I recognize, oh, and then now this is what I'm doing with you here and now. An audience, a group of people. I'm speaking to a crowd of relatable ethers who are interested in what I have to share. And so thank you for being part of that here with me, because you're who I was speaking to in my journals and my pages. It is time to make a financial flow. It is time to connect with the reach and recovery. The life of ways forward builds a secure sectional of my whole way of showing up and forward. The rate and speed of clarity allows some kind of sure way forward. The kind of recognized home in myself feels good to be restful and recover a way of moving from a truthful space, while also recognizing that the some kind of register makes the love forward to read and register the link and love to move into a way to make core aligned ways to share. So I'm like just channeling jumblegook there. So after I identified who it was I was talking about, I sort of went into this like thing, which I do sometimes, which often is like new information that my brain and body don't yet quite understand how to digest or navigate. So I sort of was like, oh, I'm speaking to people. Okay. And then here's information from Marissa. What? To be a recovery recognition monitor, to feel the flow of my own home is a kind of long way home that recognizes and registers so much forefront and show the rest of your own life and living. Okay, cool. So when I was like, I wonder if I'm less esoteric now, if I'm more understandable, or if I'm just getting better at it, I think that the energies that I was channeling, communing with, connecting to, experiencing as I was writing, they were just more fluid, because clearly that was not as digestible. Okay, so I think we have two more days of pages. July 29th, 2021. I am presently available to some kind of way forward. A way to increase visibility from a way of relating that feels nourishing and whole. I feel really good here. I want more and more to show up from an aligned and stable support. I can sense the grounding that astrology and card readings offers for me. This is some kind of way to move into the next round of offerings that blends the truth of wisdom of a general markup with the fear of uncertainty of some kind of solace and solid footing and connection with the earth. The movement home allows a pleasure to build and rise forward. The network of uncertain wisdoms holds a blanket of safety and comfort around the practical matters of my own home. The general weaning, right? The wisening of craft for secular purposes. My home and storefront speaks volumes of curatorial wisdom. The widening gate of self-worth and core acceptance feels so good and pure and right. I love the makings of a tender spot in my own home, the curation of some kind of similar softness for my own spirit. The love light beckons me into a new way of being with myself in the world. The cultivated recovery from performance abuse. Back to that. So all of that working through, I think what kind of came through, and I just went, this is what it's related to, the cultivated recovery from performance abuse. This is what I'm cultivating as my own recovery from performance abuse. And hopefully the sharing this process with those of you who I love, who I do trust. There's so many of you. I've been also modeling my voice, like not just how many likes and follows and shares am I getting, but like who is liking and following and sharing my work? And are those people who I feel really safe in connection with? Are those others who the way they share, the way they connect to their work and their art feel like a resonant match to like my insides? And then I'm recognizing that, oh, okay, if I feel safe with the people who are drawn to the way that I'm sharing, then that's a good sign that what I'm sharing is reflective of what of the kind of connection I want to cultivate with my community and with myself, so that I feel safe to the people I feel safe with. Okay, so this is where my heart is right now. I cannot move from a place of integrative healing without also leaving behind that which has been actively making me sick. A rightness of spirit blends forward motion for something more core aligned and reasonably marketable. The day to become less figuratively restorative and mutually beneficial for my own liberation and freedom. The core idea of me really wants alignment to outward sharing. My homeward bound rest and spirit bring a weighted presence and crafted home and forerunning ways. The light and life of a good general reading feels frustrated with so much that moves beyond the sad face of exploratory tools and recovery movements. How you doing? You staying with me? This is starting to feel like a different video. Does it feel like a different video to you? It does to me. I just kind of want to be with that for a second and recognize that, like, I want this to be done. So it's going to be done. Maybe I'll come back to these pages for a different video. But I feel like what I wanted to get through was that little space a moment ago when I was like, well, everything was so clear, right? And we worked through some stuff. We got back to the thread of the story of being in the woods, right? And we had a couple of deviations from that, but we got back there. We talked about the different facets of how I'm thinking about things to kind of regulate myself through. And then now, before I start this other experience that I just started, but the framing that I really liked that I read to you was the cultivated recovery from performance abuse. So I think that's like, that's that's the message for today's share, is the cultivated recovery from performance abuse. Like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm moving the way I'm moving. And that's why I'm sharing the way I'm sharing. And that's why I'm finding ways to feel. That's why also, like, it doesn't feel good or right, like right now to make this into like that, like I was saying before, overly academic, or like make the classes or the worksheets or the workbooks to help people learn how to do what I'm doing. And that might come along eventually. But like for right now, I think part of the process is really just like, those of you who really want to take this deep dive, like, I need to know that you're with me. Like, I want to hear feedback from you. What, and I tend to, since I'm like deep feeler thinker and I'm like recess more and more, if that's you also and you're listening to this, know that, like, if you just feel it in your heart and you're like, I am with you, that means so much to me. You don't have to physically, I mean, you don't even have to do that, but like, I think what I'm wanting is just to reach and resonate with resonant hearts and people who maybe have an awareness that they're moving through terrain that they don't totally understand all the time. And I'm not on the other side of that. I'm still working it out very clearly with myself, for myself. Perhaps once Marissa's moon magic continues to like work its magic in the world, and I feel more regulated and I feel more capable to just share tools easily, because I'm so comfortable with the tools and I feel safe with the tools and I feel safe with the people who've shown me how to use the tools, that there may be possibility for that energy to continue to bridge forward through pages and process and through self-care for performers. And perhaps there'll be more of like a me stepping a little bit more into a supportive role in those areas. And I don't think I'm not supportive, but I feel like my primary experiencing reason and goal is to like, I need to support myself and I need to feel not so alone. So if you relate to that feeling that you need to give that to yourself, like I want you to know that it's okay. And if you're someone who's actually watching me walk through this and this is helpful for you, like recognize that in yourself too, that there are people who will walk with you, who will be with you in as you navigate this strange terrain of like inner unknown. Um, they're out there, we're out there. You're one of them. And maybe you already have either one solid or several people or a way of sharing a community that feels like it's meeting this need. But what I do find in at least in dominant culture and creative arts as industries is that that's not something I find is readily accessible from a place of um, widely sharing. And so you can be like a little more less deep, a little more shallow and broad, or a little deeper and just smaller in the way you're sharing. I think that for right now, at least, that's where I feel like I am with this. That's where I feel like I am with you, is just like covering a little less space, maybe, but we're just going really deep into something. Um, if you like this, please hit that subscribe button. Little likes help me get more reach. I hear from the YouTube people that say things on YouTube, as do I think comments. So if you're someone who feels comfortable doing those things, I would appreciate it. If you're not someone who feels comfortable doing those things, totally fine, totally get you. And if it would feel good if you have that one or several other people you feel good connecting in this way with, and you think something that I've shared would resonate with them, I would love it so much if you just shared the video along. All right. I have so much compassion and love for those of us who are on this kind of journey. And I recognize how hard and lonely it can feel at times. So thank you for being with me here, and know that I am on this journey alongside you. All right. Bye-bye.